What is the worst second-hand embarrassment you've ever felt? A colleague of mine put in his 2 weeks. For context, he's a fairly attractive man. Well, this woman from HR of all places comes by his cubicle to, wish him well, I guess? Anyway, she basically gives him a lap dance right there in front of the whole office. A girl graduating from college falling down repeatedly on the stage. She fell at least 3 or 4 times, and it was like something invisible was sweeping her leg out from under her. Even she had a WTF expression on her face. Was at dinner party when my friend's mother-in-law asked another one of our friends when her baby was due. She wasn't pregnant. Anyway, Amael should have simply apologized, but instead doubles down with something to the effect of "it sure looks like you're pregnant." Had a guy walk into class in college late. It was auditorium seating, and the only open spaces were on the 4th row in the middle, about 25 rows in total, and about 50 seats per row. This guy walks in and sits down 15 minutes into lecture and opens his laptop, which as soon as the lights boot up starts blaring porn, and at the build up to the big finale to boot. He couldn't log in fast enough or mute it since he wasn't logged in. So he slammed it shut, put it in his bag, and walked out with it still blaring at full volume. We heard it finally stop as he was about to leave the building. That time my old roommate told a table full of his family that AIDS and cancer are the same thing. Just after talking about how much he's been learning from his night classes. Those classes were being paid for by his parents, and spoiler alert, he wasn't attending any classes. They realized it by the time dinner was over. I was ringing a girl and her BF up, and she was a few dollars short on her transaction. BF then got in my face and insisted her Red Bulls were BOGO. It is true they were BOGO, but the promo had ended months earlier. This man proceeds to yell and scream at me for 5 minutes about how she deserves these drinks and how dare I yada yada. This whole time his GF was trying to disappear into the chip display like Homer sliding into that bush, just dying of embarrassment. Eventually, after I threatened to trespass him, he gave me the biggest eye roll I have ever received and spat on the floor, and told his GF, "Let's get out of here, this faggot clearly gets off on denying beautiful women what they need." His exact words. That video of a guy that was rejected on the beach, so he rants about how his daughter just died and he's attractive. I was a server at an Americana restaurant, and a family came in and the mother was berating everyone. She yelled at the server and complained about the food not being the right temperature, and then she thought it was too salty, etc. She really had it in for the 17-year-old server. He was fine, but the customer wanted to pick at someone. Her husband and teenaged children looked embarrassed. She had been like this before. There is a sign on the door that said we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and management decided that this lady shouldn't eat with us again, so the manager went over and comped the meals and told them to leave and not come back. The woman was upset and left mean feedback. In response to feedback, a regular posted with a picture of the woman and her family. She quickly took down her bad feedback. She deserved the public uprating, but I was embarrassed for her family. When a colleague accidentally unmuted himself in a meeting and said something snarky about someone on the call. That particular call was being recorded too. Not me directly, but I had a colleague tell me he'd been moderating a work-related town hall meeting on Teams, and the meeting was being recorded for publishing on the website. Some poor sod didn't realize his camera was on, and took his laptop into the bathroom with him to continue listening while he took a dump. Since most people had their cameras off, his video popped up beside the presenters on Teams. Needless to say, the recording was quietly lost. I was selling some kettlebells on Facebook Marketplace, and a woman, early 40s maybe, bought them. She came to pick them up, and as I handed them over to her, she obviously wasn't expecting them to be as heavy as they were, and as she suddenly strained to counter the weight, she ripped the most extreme of farts you have ever heard. It was gargantuan. I was shocked, but also proud. I'm usually pretty good at making light of any situation, but I found myself speechless for the first time in my life. If I could, I would return serve, but even on my best day I don't believe I could create such a symphony. We both kind of stared into each other's eyes and she said well, and turned around and walked off. I think about her often. I'm sure everyone felt this for me. I walked into work one day and everyone was standing around and I was like, what happened, someone died? Yep, guy I worked with took his life. I went to an open house and there was this older realtor helping the listing agent. He was excitedly walking around this empty house talking about features, while looking back at my husband and he ran head first into the chandelier that would be positioned over a dining room table had one been there. It happened so quick we couldn't even warn him. He got tangled in it and ripped it down as he fell face first to the ground, cutting himself up badly in the process. We both still cringe thinking about it. We saw him out at the supermarket recently and both whispered "Oh no." That lady who took out like half the Tour de France peloton with her stupid sign. I only saw it on TV, but that second-hand embarrassment reverberated across the world for me. If that was me, I would be looking into planetary relocation. I can't imagine it. I still think back on it and feel a sense of relief that I have never fucked up that badly before. Does third-hand embarrassment count? My uncle died midway through a contentious divorce from my aunt. Nobody on our side of the family liked the guy, and we were happy she had finally dropped him. Turns out nobody on his side of the family liked the guy either, his adult children and parents included, and didn't seem fazed at his death. My mom went to the funeral to support her sister and said it was the most awkward funeral she'd ever been to. There were only about 10 people who actually attended, and the pastor running the thing had set aside 30 minutes for people to come up and share their positive memories of the guy. No one moved. Nobody was willing to say a good word about him. Instead, the pastor awkwardly tried to fill the space with some general everyone has value stuff, and then gave up and ended the service after 10 minutes total. No one in the family bothered to go to the graveside service either. Apparently, they decided to go to a bar instead to get shit-faced and trash-talk the dead guy. My old boss, who was basically IRL Michael Scott, was describing a coworker on the first day she came in for an interview. He described her, to her face, as Viagra with legs. A kid in boot camp shit his pants. We were at the rifle range all day, and they have to inspect every part of you to make sure you're not sneaking rounds back to the squad bay to shoot your die with. So they told us to stand up, pull our trousers and skivvies down, and to turn around. One of the die goes, "What the fuck is this?" And instinctively we all turn and look to see this pale, skinny 19-year-old that has shit all over his ass and commies. I can't describe the humiliation and horror I felt. They made him march with his trousers around his ankles around the squad bay until our senior die came out to see what was going on. I don't think I shit for a week after that. It was like my body stopped producing it out of fear. We had 63 guys in our platoon and he was the only one who didn't graduate. Went to an Italian restaurant once with someone who was learning Italian and knew quite a bit. None of the staff were Italian, it was essentially just a pizzeria in a small town. She insisted on ordering for the whole table, in the language with the correct pronunciation etc. Waitress was like 17 and didn't have a clue what was happening whilst we all just sat there. I went to school for software development. Very difficult program, high fail rate. First day of second semester we're hanging out chatting and a guy I know from the program chats with us. Now, in first semester, he struggled. We all knew he struggled. I was kind of surprised to see him. We were talking about grades and he says, "Oh wow, you guys saw your grades?" How? Yes. Head got through the semester and never checked his grades. We pull up the school website and he logs in and we point him to the grades section. And he says, "What do these Ws mean?" I look over and he's got a W in 3 classes, which is basically a grade lower than F. It's like a did not complete. I'm like, that means you can't really be here right now. You should go talk to the registrar's office. He's honestly more confused than anything. He wanders off and we never see him again. Bless my ex-GF. She was a waitress and we were out to dinner with my parents. My mother pulls the trying to use an expired coupon move on the waiter. She simply refused to accept that time is a thing and that the written date had passed. While I zone out and wait for my mom to either win or be escorted out by management, my ex was apparently slowly losing her mind. She suddenly snatches the dollar bill-sized coupon from my mother's hand and eats it. Literally tore it and shoved the pieces in her mouth. She says that since there's no more coupon, there's no deal. It was nice, having the crazy chick be crazy on the staff's behalf for a change.